Alright, so in this video I want to talk about sweep picking and specifically some things that really help my sweep picking and also a ton of my students. So some things that I've seen in my students is that I show them how to do the rest stroke. So a rest stroke means that if I pick the low E string, for example, I want to follow through, so I end up resting on the next string, which is the A string. So you get this. Right? And the reason for that is it's the most efficient way, and you make sure you avoid this, which a lot of people tend to do when they first start doing sweep picking. And doing the rest stroke will enable you to practice this technique very slowly to overcome the most difficult part of it, which is coordinating it with the left hand. So I'm going to show you here why the speed of the right hand is not really an issue. Even if you're fairly new to the technique, you will likely be able to do this if you experiment with it for a while. So let's just try this. Start by resting the string, the pick on the string, the low E string. Then just let the pick fall. So like that. So I'm just muting here. And why I don't have any sound on right now is because it's quite annoying to listen to. And you really want to hear each individual string here. So even you're just doing a semi-slow strum, that's what you want to do. And then you want to do the opposite. Do that. Now you want to try to connect them. And the next step after that is try to make it smoother. So you want to keep every note as even as possible, but still keeping the tempo quite high. So just start doing this and relax. And when you do this for a while, you start dialing it in a bit. You probably will find that your right hand will naturally do this. It will slant in a particular direction. So when you go from a thick string to a thin string, it will do what's called downward pick slanting. And then when you go from a thin string to a thick string, you do upward pick slanting. And that's something that happens naturally if you let it. So once you get that going, slow that down even more. And try to keep the technique the same as much as possible. So go between the fast version and then you slow it down. And if you slow it down enough, you're going to find that you're actually going to be doing these rest strokes naturally. So I want you to remember this, meaning that you can go back here. And you want to find a very relaxed technique, because anytime you do any kind of sweep picking, if your right hand is tense, you're doing it wrong, because the whole point of economy picking and sweep picking is for it to be very relaxed and you sort of work with the instrument instead of against it. And as you can see here, it's not really difficult to sweep very fast in the right hand. The problem is coordinating it with the left hand. But what I've seen then with my students, that even when we've done this initially and then we start adding the left hand, they tend to go back to something that looks very awkward. Now that's not a problem, as long as you go back to this muted version and you always check in with yourself that your right hand is as close to whatever this version looks like for you. And that's sort of the beautiful thing about this. It doesn't really matter how you hold your pick, whether you use more wrist, whether you use more forearm. Just find a way that works for your technique. So don't change your technique to get this down, because if you pick in a certain way, you don't want to have to change in some weird, sweep picking position. You want to keep it as close to your normal technique as possible, so you can actually incorporate it in your playing in a more natural way. So this is the first step. Remember this. And I mean, this is a good exercise in itself. And what you can do as well is just do a sweep up like that, and then hit that, the top string. So you try to get that down. And then when you do that, you hit that string, make sure it's a rest stroke. So you're actually resting now on top of the B string, or above, closer to the floor from the B string's view. So like this, not there. So I'm going and then making sure that the last string, this is the high E string, I'm actually resting below the next string. So like that. And then you do the same thing. So you try to get that transition, and then you can try getting them together. But again, you want to make sure that you do it in a very relaxed fashion. But the thing is, you won't be able to do this if you're not relaxed. If you tense too much or you dig in too much, it's not gonna work. So that's the first thing. So always go back to that. And then the second thing is to be able to coordinate this with the left hand. So a really good arpeggio to start with is this one, because there's no barring and we have no no pull-offs or anything like that added to it. It's just a pure sweep. Also, it sounds good as well. So we start here. We have 10 on the A string, 9 on the D string, 7 on the G string, 8 on the B string, and 7 on the E string. So that's a G major arpeggio. Then we're gonna go down in this arpeggio, which is it's an E minor 7. So we got 10 on the E string, 8, 7, 9, 7. So if we put them together over an E chord, it all adds up to be an E minor 7 actually. So now what you want to do is you let your right hand do this slanting. As you can see here, the left hand has to work way more than the right hand. But why this shape is so good to start with is because you don't have any barring, and like I said, you don't have any pull-offs or anything on the other strings, which would make your right hand have to wait. If I did that, for example, if you look at my right hand now, I have to wait for this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Whereas this one, you have 5 notes, which can be a bit awkward at first, but you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you pick everything. So it's just easier to get going with that. And especially looking into your right hand, so you're actually doing exactly the same thing, or as close to the same thing as when you do it quickly. But like I said, it shouldn't necessarily look like what I'm doing. It should look like whatever it looks like when you do your thing like this. Some people like to, rest a finger like this to have more stability. Some have a closed fist, some have an open. It doesn't really matter. Just find what works and feels natural for your body. So, to get the left hand to work then, it's very important to just treat it as any type of pick technique. So focus on accuracy and good tone and relaxation. So that's basically what I do. And then a shit ton of reps. And of course you can try different rhythmic variations, doing the accents, doing the looping technique, and all the stuff that I talked about before. Pretty much all that stuff is applicable to sweep picking as well. But above all, make sure you don't get into the habit of, the classic, where you kind of hear the top note and the bottom note and the rest is just crap, right? And it's very easy to do that because the right hand, like I said, as you probably see now, that's not really the difficulty here. That's not the speed, that's not the thing that's going to hold the speed back, because it's very easy to do this. If you give your guitar to a non-guitar playing friend and just let them do that and that, they're basically sweeping but with no control. So the speed is already there. Now it's all about building the control. So this one is really good. And one extra tip here is to try to work on it and making sure then that the right hand is as it should be. Cut the notes short in the left hand. So it doesn't sound good when you play it slow. But as you get faster, the gaps will start to disappear. Oops. So besides the mistake there, you probably could hear that the notes didn't really become longer, just that since I played them faster, the gaps disappeared that way. So because it's quite easy to get the two bleed together like this, right? So the articulation when it comes to sweep picking is all in the left hand, especially if you don't, use muting like this. And it's fine if you like that sound, but I think if you practice sweep picking with muting all the time, you're probably going to be in for quite a rude awakening when you don't want muted notes, because then you haven't really worked on articulating everything with the left hand. So I think it's, if you work on that first and then try muting, you might have to find a good spot for the muting, and you might have to practice it for a little bit, but the other way around will take way longer if you don't get this right. So again, just cut the notes short. And how do we do that then? Well, you just lift, you don't even lift the finger, you just release the pressure. Right? And it really sounds crappy when you do it with distortion like this initially. And also practicing on this pickup, because it's way easier to get it to sound good on this pickup. And also, when I went to GIT, they call this the cheating pickup, or some, you know, friends that I had at school. So, you know, I don't agree with that at all, but it does sound, it does smooth your sound out, but it also, you can't really get the same sound like that with the bridge pickup. So I don't think of things in a cheating or non-cheating, but since it's easier to get a you know, smoother sound here, it's better to, you know, practice here. So you can do whatever you want to do on this pickup, but you might still prefer the sound of the neck pickup, because it really is a different sound, right? So, but don't practice on this pickup, because then most likely you will, you know, you might not notice that some notes doesn't sound as good, and then when you turn on this pickup, you're gonna be like, ooh, what's that crap, you know? So it's a, you know, it can sound annoying as well when you do it like that, but it's a good exercise, and I would suggest, as pretty much always, start down here and just work on it. But maybe try doing it without the short notes going up, and then when you go back, you do the short notes, or vice versa. Or maybe you do, you know, a couple of reps short, and then normal, short, and so on. So that's really helpful to get the articulation right. And another thing you should try and keep an ear out for is this. If you, whatever sweep you're working on, try playing it with alternate picking. And it's not to replace sweep picking, because obviously it's going to be very hard to match the speed with alternate picking. But doing with alternate picking, you're going to get a better tone initially, and you want to mimic that when you do sweep picking. For whatever reason, it's easy to get into kind of a crappier sound when you sweep pick, but if you can do it with alternate picking really slowly, and you try to get the same tone when you sweep pick, and that's a very helpful thing as well. If you have trouble with sweep picking, try these tips. They really helped me out, and it's also helped out a ton of my students, like I mentioned before. And like with anything else, it takes time to get good at this stuff and be reliable with it, so you can actually do it when you want to do it and not rely on luck, because that's never a good thing when it comes to guitar playing. Now with sweep picking, there's a lot of shapes to learn, and, you know, barring and all that kind of stuff. But I have a lot of videos here on my site, and also a lot of different licks in the Lick of the Day series, for example, where you can see sort of a kind of a musical context to all this stuff. But if you want more sweep picking stuff, I'm going to link to that at the end of this video, and I'm going to link to a specific video which can help you with the barring aspect of arpeggios, because that's a big sticking point for a lot of people. Back in the day, I used to have real issues with fast alternate picking when it came to 2 notes per string. I was fine with 3 notes per string, but the 2 notes per string thing was a bit harder to crack. So if you struggle with fast alternate picking as well and you don't know what to practice or for how long, I've created the perfect solution for you in the form of the Pentatonic Picking Power Book. So in this book you'll find a daily workout that will not only help your pentatonic picking, but will also upgrade your overall alternate picking technique. So it contains basically the same exercises I use myself to develop my picking abilities, as well as numerous students over the years that I've given the same exercise to with great results. So I know these exercises work as long as you put in the work. So it's not a quick solution or quick fix. It will still take a lot of work, but at least you have a very easy to follow routine. So if you're up for a big alternate picking upgrade in 2024, I cannot think of a better start. It's $9 and I think it's very underpriced, but I did it that way just so as many people as possible could be helped by this. So check that out.